We've done more than that. Right, welcome to our 100th edition of Business Talks. Thanks everyone for home for watching. We are across Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. So if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. Lindsay's going to watch the chat, and if there is anything there, we can ask Matt. Thanks, Matt. CEO of the Port of Tyne. Matt, I've just watched your TEDx talk from 2016.
Right.
2016?
I've done a few of them.
Oh,
actually.
have you?
Yeah.
Right.
I've done 3 of them. So which one was it on?
Leadership.
Right.
We're talking about leadership.
Okay. Oxbridge one.
Right.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you got 2 twin boys?
Yes.
Yeah. And they were saying
16 years
you
of
asked them
age.
about leadership and you were expecting to say dad and or just...
Yeah. One of them said Dad.
Oh, right, okay.
And nobody had heard of me. But the other said Obama, and everybody had heard of him at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seems like a long time ago. That does now.
So is leadership your thing then?
I guess I've been a victim of leadership
Right.
for a long time, and I've done it for quite a bit as well. But I am a firm believer in various aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about what you know, it's how you treat people.
Okay.
And so I'm a real massive advocate.
Culture then?
Values, culture,
Yeah.
openness, all of that kind of stuff. So, so yeah, having been the victim of some bad experiences, I've also been very, very lucky to work with some amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. It's like everybody. You know, you learn along the way, and what works for you, and what doesn't.
Yeah. I think from a leadership point of view as well, it's good that you've been through some bad experiences because you can say, like, I am not putting that on my team.
Yeah.
We want that good culture. So is that something you work hard at the port?
Yes. Yeah. And you're right about the learning experience. I think, like all of us, unless you've gone through a bad experience, it's hard to know where your boundaries are. And the bad experience was around values, actually. And then I realised myself how important values were to me. But I've been at the port now for 4 years, and we've got some amazing colleagues at the port. We've got some people who have been there for years, 40 plus years. Their dads have worked there, their granddads have worked there. They feel it and they live it. And, you know, whilst we all in offices like to believe that, you know, we have that connection, people who do that job day in, day out really do feel it. And they're the things that really make stuff work. So yeah, that's really important to me, the values and how we treat each other.
Have you got any colleagues here this evening? One.
What a crowd puller.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you know...
Ian, our commercial directors at the back.
Right. Well, you've got one more than Tom Nightingale, so you've won. You've won.
I'm going to use that with Tom. Yeah. I love that.
Actually, no, you don't. Tom was a decent crowd puller, Tom, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Equinor's a crowd puller, isn't it? Yeah. Equinor's quite a crowd puller.
I think it was just because it was a Thursday and this is a Wednesday. That's all it is.
That's what I'm going to blame it on as well.
So, okay, then let's talk about the port then. So 4 years, what's changed in those 4 years? A lot. Obviously, we've been through a crazy few years. So how's that been?
Yeah, so the environment's changed a lot. I think when I was asked to join, if you'd have told me that we were going to go through a couple of Brexits, because a couple didn't happen, did they? And the extensions were put in place. If you're going to talk about that and a global pandemic and a war in Ukraine, I would have probably thought twice about it. But yeah, a lot has changed. So I don't know how many of you have been to the port 4 years ago, but it was largely a coal port. So when I joined in 2019, there was still a lot of coal on site. The market for coal had dropped. Profitability of the port was going down because, you know, that commodity was not in demand. Ironically, it kind of is in demand again now. But so we quickly had to reinvent the port, and we hadn't spent money on some bits of land that we needed to really revamp and attract these new businesses to, like Equinor.
Yeah.
And Equinor was the start of something very new to us, and the likes of Ian are working really hard with the rest of that industry, trying to get those jobs like Equinor, and Equinor's got nearly 100 years of a contract there, so 3 generations. That's the kind of business that we want.
You mentioned land there. There's a lot of land, isn't there? And I think sometimes from our side, you see it, but I don't know if anyone's been. If anyone been in Amsterdam on the DFDS ferry, and you go along and you see the Tyne and you see home from a very different angle. But from this side, you don't really see how big the port is, do you?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of my frustrations about the port. Although there's not a great deal that you can do about it. It's an amazing place to go and look at and see work, but it's got a great big wall around it. And so there's kids in this region who would probably find that place amazing and fascinating. They don't see through the wall. And we have actually talked about putting glass panels in for kids to see what's going on. But yeah, when you're involved in it and ships come in, you see the kind of stuff that comes off ships, and you realise the importance it has for the region. Yeah, it's a fascinating place. It's a small business in many respects, certainly fiscally, but the impact is huge. So yeah, we've reinvented the place in 4 years. I think people are starting to get to know what we do a lot more. There's a lot more that we can do in terms of community open days and so on. But yeah, it's an exciting place to be.
You mentioned coal, and then you sort of said that you had to, look at more other avenues, revenue streams. What did that look like?
Yeah, well, the business in 2019 relied heavily on coal and Nissan. And the reality is we still rely on Nissan. The region relies on Nissan. Crikey, it's not just the port. And it's amazing to have Nissan in the region. So what we wanted to do was lessen the risk of the port on two commodities, basically. And so whilst doing that, whilst thinking of the other markets that we needed to be involved in, we also wanted to look at future markets that had longevity, because the region lost shipbuilding. We designed the railways. It's the heart of the Industrial Revolution. It's where it all started. So we need new industries to latch onto, so it gives us generational jobs. And so offshore wind and the energy transition and the automotive transition are an obvious start. So I know everybody loves Equinor, but the importance of that to the port wasn't the fact that they pay us money to reside on the port. It was the effect that it has on jobs in the region, it's the supply chain, it's everything associated with it. And when an organisation like Equinor uses the port and Nissan uses the port, then there's a momentum behind it, and we're starting to see that now.
So there's a 2050 strategy, is that right?
Yes, Tyne 2050.
Yeah, and is that part of that? And if so, what else is in that strategy?
Yeah, so I had a bit of a cheat sheet when I started, really. Okay. So the DFT launched Maritime 2050, which is, it's a load of goals. There's about 100 or so goals that they want the maritime industry to work on for the next 30 years. So we took those goals and we turbocharged them a little bit. I don't like saying turbocharged, actually, but yeah, we really put some energy into some of those goals, and we made Tyne 2050, which is our vision, the change in the future for the port. And Tyne 2050 was probably the first long-term port strategy in the UK. And we did that on purpose. We did that in a very intentionally ambitious way. They're the two words that we use at the port a lot. And the reason that we did it is that maritime needs to change, and needs to change really quickly. And I come from an aerospace and transport background. And things are super fast. They change so fast. But maritime's quite slow to change. So we put out these heady targets, and we made it public. So we made it public so people had to look at us, and it made us competitive, but also we did it publicly so other ports had to follow suit. Because we don't want to just make the Port of Tyne, clean, more diverse, etc., etc. We want the industry to be like that. So with us putting those markers in the sand, it forced everybody else to do it. And actually, if you look at our pamphlet, I won't name the ports, specifically. But if you look at our strategy, some other ports have copied the strategy, which I love.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not precious about that. We do that on purpose so people follow suit. So it's really kick-started a whole ports movement for us. But that was the start of the Maritime Innovation Hub, still the first and still the only Maritime Innovation Hub in the UK. We drew a line in the sand for being carbon neutral by 2030. We'll probably do that by 2027 as a port. So yeah, the other 25 goals are real heady targets, and we made it really public, and everything that we invest in now has to fit within Tyne 2050.
You just touched upon it there. I think, did you say aerospace was your background?
Yes.
In transport, and now maritime?
Yes.
So as the CEO of a port, do you get together with other leaders from ports and you get down in this maritime hub? You must have got tattoos of anchors and things.
Yeah,
and
all down my arm, chest, yeah.
So you're with all these other leaders and you're talking about the maritime industry and goals. What does the UK look like, and how do we fit into that strategy?
I think as a collection, well, firstly, 95% of everything that comes into the UK and goes out goes by sea.
Okay.
So ports have to be slick and can't be the slowest link in a chain of logistics, or the chain of success, as we call it. There's a real willingness within ports to change. I think what it takes is some momentum and some goals. And now we've all got the goals, and everybody's racing to change, not for the competitiveness of it. Mm-hmm. It's purely because we want to do the right things. There are elements that will take. It's easy for us as a port to get carbon neutral because we're a bit of land and we control our inputs and outputs of that. But from a shipping perspective, they buy these huge ships with millions and millions of pounds with years to write off that investment. So it's hard for them to switch fuels on ships. But we can do things to influence that in tariffs, you know, green shipping tariffs and so on. So we're looking at ways of influencing the supply chain as well as doing what we're doing. But I think ports are really behind the change. But what I would say is it was a real intention to not just look at ports at Tyne 2050. So we work with digital organisations, we work with aerospace organisations, we've worked with Rolls-Royce, we've worked with Sellafield, nuclear, we work with NICD, the National Innovation Centre for Data. We work with the Innovation Hub, we probably had 400 companies in many, many countries around the world collaborating, making sure that we're doing things safer, quicker. So we don't just learn from other ports. We try and take the best from all industries.
And in terms of that learning, is it outside of the UK as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So we signed up to the Connected Ports organisation in 2019 when we launched the strategy, and we're the only port in it in the UK, although we're doing similar things in the UK now. But we're sharing non-sensitive data to see how we could get greener, quicker, cheaper. And it was fascinating actually when we first started, because we think that we do things in order to be greener, but actually we might be forcing more carbon down the supply chain by doing it. Mm-hmm. So swapping some of the data and see where the pinch points are was really interesting. But there are other means of swapping data now. So lots of UK ports are starting to do the same kind of thing really, and look at how we affect that link with, our link in the chain, look at how we affect the other links.
I'm nervously going to ask you now what data. You're going to blow my mind, aren't you?
All data is confidential.
Are you taking data from aerial, where everything?
We'll take all kinds of data, speed of the ships actually getting to us when they arrive, what berth they arrive on, the kind of activities that we might have to do, whether that's craneage, whether that's roll on, roll off, etc. And ultimately on how to get greener. Does it? Here's a question that really surprised me when I found out. Is it okay to ask?
Go for it.
So,
go for it.
How many? of all the imports that come into the UK, how much do you think comes into the north through southern ports, particularly Felixstowe and so on? Let's put 30, 40%. Yeah, around 70%. And of that, 19 million engine hours are spent stationary near London and around the M25. There's got to be a better way of doing logistics. If we were going to design the system again, we'd do it completely different. We can't just rip it all up and start again, because there's jobs in regions and industry's been built around this. So we have to think of smarter ways of doing stuff.
That wasn't your colleague who shouted out 70%
No, it wasn't.
on the back, was it? Really cheating out.
I thought I was actually going to really surprise her, but you knew it. Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. Let's talk about clean energy then.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually mean?
I guess for us, it's finding an industry, it's finding a commodity that we all need, and it's finding a way of producing that commodity in a way that we can be proud of and we can hand over to our children in a way that we don't feel any guilt. That's it for me. Mm-hmm. Now, times move on. We probably thought that about coal and a whole host of stuff that we do, but we learn more as we go along. So clean energy for me is anything that allows us to produce. We're going to need more and more energy. You can see the EVs, the electric vehicles that we have running around on the road now. We're going to need a lot more energy. How can we do that in a way that's safe for our kids and grandkids? That's what it means to me. And then what we do at the port is figure out, how can we influence that for this region? And that's what people like Ian, I feel like I'm giving you a name check every 5 minutes. That's what people like Ian are doing at the port.
Yeah. And does that flow through the supply chain as well? So, to work with the port, is your supply chain kind of expected to be on board with that and to have those similar goals?
Yeah, so again, with Tyne 2050, we mapped out the kind of organisation that we want to work with. Yeah. And, there's no matrix that you have to kind of fit into. But we will refuse to do business with things that we don't see fit our agenda and our values and all that kind of stuff. And actually, through COVID, I'm sure a lot of people in here suffered. Financially, the business has suffered with COVID, and the port was no different. The Nissan car park, if you've ever been to the Nissan car park or seen it at port, it is huge, and there's plenty of cars in there. I always wonder whether they'll miss one. Nissan's actually here. I shouldn't say this, but it's huge. Yeah. And I drove through there in COVID because we didn't stop for a single day in COVID, not for an hour. We didn't stop because we can't. But there was probably 20 cars in the car park when we were in the real dark times of COVID. So yeah, it's. I forgot what the question now is.
Just for people here who don't know the relationship between the port and Nissan, do you want to?
Yeah. So Nissan obviously produced the cars in Sunderland. Typically about 400,000 cars in the normal production kind of cycle, and they all come to the port. These huge ships come in, they load them all on, and they ship them all around the world. Sorry, am I not loud enough? That's the first time I've ever been told that. So they ship them all around the world from the port. So the big Hogue liners that you see coming in down the Tyne with no windows in, there's 9,000 cars in one of them. So it's quite an operation that Nissan run out of the port. So it's massive for us, businesses. So yeah, we have this profile of business. During COVID, that was my point. Yeah, during COVID, we had the opportunity to get quite a lot of coal back on the port, and that would have helped us financially. Boy, that would have helped us financially, but we stuck to our guns and said, as soon as we get coal back on the port, we're almost breaking our own values here. So we had to stick to our guns and really tough it out. So yeah, but that's the importance of having a strategy that everybody believes in.
Isn't the wood pellet
yep.
there?
Yeah, so we have wood pallet that comes across the port. It goes up to Linemouth Power. It goes to Selby, the Drax Power Station in Selby. Again, that's got a lifespan on it, actually, a wood pallet. So we're going to have to reinvent ourselves again in the near future. But this is what companies like Equinor will be doing. And have you seen the announcement? We made an announcement today.
Well, there was a press release. Lindsay just showed me the press release. We quickly skimmed it, and we're hoping you would share it with us.
I'll be very honest, and Lindsay will laugh at this. I didn't know we released it until Lindsay told me. I saw the words today. I didn't realise it was coming out today. But yeah, we've signed to be the marshalling yard, so yard of storage and transport for another offshore wind farm called Sophia.
Right.
With a company called Van Ord. So. On the old coal terminal, and this is the beauty. You see the reinvention now. The old coal terminal is now being paved. It's a lot of cement.
Right.
I say paved. It sounds really simple. It's actually very expensive, and there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that will be the base, the marshalling base for the next biggest wind farm. It's going to be fantastic, and that starts at the end of this year, I believe. I'm keep looking for it.
And how did that come about? Was it through what Equinor had done, and then did they literally look over the shoulder and say that's?
Well, I think Equinor put us on the map from an offshore wind perspective, but again, we've got people like Ian and the rest of the commercial team that do a great job in selling us now. So Tyne Clean Energy Park was us just actually branding some of the land that we had, and we squeezed some stuff together to make some more land. We made about 200 acres free. But we're quite a unique port in the fact that we're deep sea. We go down to 13.5 metres, which is pretty rare. So we've got these huge bits of land next to deep sea quayside, and we don't have any restrictions in getting some of the biggest ships in the world coming into the port. And when you look at some of these ships, they're massive. The one that we've just announced today, their ship, it weighs 1,200 tons, about the same as 18 jumbo jets. It's as tall as a 30-storey building. You know, these things are massive, 80, 85 metres high or something. So that's the uniqueness of the port allows us to market ourselves to attract this new business, and that can't go everywhere. So we actually, we're in favour of geography to a certain extent. But we've got an amazing team that go out and sell us.
What's the traffic like on the Tyne? You know, from all the way through the years, how has it kind of moved? Is it drop and then peak?
Yeah, COVID, it obviously dropped. In fact, we had the biggest cruise year planned ever for the Tyne at the end of 2019 for 2020, and not a single one happened. But we now have the biggest cruise year planned for this year ever in the Tyne. Equinor will be bringing quite a few service operating vessels in and out of the port. Obviously, the ferry comes. It's a busy place, and it's getting busier. The good thing about this land is as soon as we have to sell this land to the right kind of organisations. And again, it's about attracting jobs to the region and attracting traffic to the Tyne, because it's not just the Port of Tyne. It's important here, the whole region. The Tyne itself, there's some amazing businesses down the Tyne. Shepherds, Smulders, AMP. Sunderland is a great port. Blythe is a great port. Collectively, we've got a lot to offer for the region. So it's about us being more collaborative and marketing ourselves as a region, not just a port.
So that new announcement that came out today, what does that mean for the port then?
It means that probably one of our biggest pieces of land is going to be full for a year and a bit. It means a lot more ships in and out of the port. It means that we will be the marshalling yard for Sophia, which is a huge offshore wind farm in the middle of the North Sea. So Equinor look after Dogger Bank. This will be Sophia. So now it's not just one project that we're looking after in offshore wind. It's two huge projects. And the more anchor tenants that we can get like that, the more supply chain that we can attract to the region. And that's really where the jobs are as well.
You're going to need a five-a-side football pitch between those two.
We've got a five-a-side football pitch.
Equinor, there's going to be...
Did you know that we own a five-a-side football
pitch?
So Cobaldine in the north side is our building.
Right.
That's got a five-a-side football.
There you go.
But it's up for sale if you want it. I could talk to Equinor about that, actually.
Let's talk about the pledge. Where's our pledge here?
Yes.
Have you had much to do with that from a leadership level? Does someone pick that up, or?
Yeah, it was an easy pledge for us, really, because the things that South Tyneside are trying to do absolutely match with the things that we were already trying to do, and actually the pledge just helps us get some of that stuff off the ground.
Yeah.
For us, it's about we sit in an amazing area, and not just South Tyneside, but North Tyneside as well, and the surrounding region. But the things that we invested in weren't necessarily local and weren't necessarily meeting the values that we had before. So in 2019, again, what we wanted to do was concentrate on things that allowed, kids to have opportunities that they might not otherwise get. We wanted families to be fed. We wanted to redirect some of the charitable stuff that we do to where it's most needed, and that's about education, getting back to work, kids, food, getting people off the streets, etc. So of the £100,000 or so a year that we spend, actually what we do really fit into the pledge. So it was an easy sign for us. And it's quite inspiring working with South Tyneside, because they have all of that same view as well. So it was a marriage made in heaven, really, and it helps us do some of the things that we want to do.
Yeah. Just thinking about going back to those maritime goals, you said like 100 goals. From a corporate social responsibility piece, is that some of the goals? And yes. Is that driven like from the UK? Did you say like all the ports need to have a policy? And
yeah, I don't know what's in Maritime 2050 right. In terms of their community kind of work, but it was something that was really at the heart of everybody. But it wasn't just my pledge or the team's pledge. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the port wants to help people in the region. And there's a massive goodwill on the port. Like I say, we've got some incredible colleagues on the port. So actually just formalising ways in which we can help the region just made sense to us, really. So things that we do with South Shields Football Club, we do things, we run programmes there with the club that get people into doing activities where they might otherwise get roped into stuff that they, not necessarily savoury, through no fault of their own, but they don't necessarily have access to those kind of activities. So breakfast clubs. I always find these bits hard to talk about, actually, but the food banks that we have, and I visit, the food banks in the region quite a lot. It fills me with pride and fills me with shame at the same time. It's amazing. The people who run it are amazing, but we shouldn't need to have it. Yeah. So working with these kind of organisations, everybody wants to be part of. So the port does it, but actually we do our own collections, and the stuff that we get from the people on the quayside is phenomenal. We could fill vans up of stuff. Like I say, we shouldn't need it.
Yeah.
But there's so much goodwill for the region, the port. It's inspiring.
So some of the stuff you mentioned there with the football club, is it purely a funding thing that you do, or do you have colleagues going out and helping with projects? Do you give them time off to volunteer and things?
Yeah, everybody's invited to get involved in things. We give everybody a day off a year to go and do charitable work. And actually we get requests for more than a day off. And I do stuff as well. And not for the PR of it. Actually, when you get involved in it, it's hard not to want more. Yeah. It's a real rewarding thing to do. So yeah, we pledge money, we get people involved, we run clubs. The breakfast clubs are fantastic. We give people time off to help in the community. So yeah, we do our bit when we can, and also we try and deliver some food as well in the Port of Tyne van, so we know that we're part of it.
Yeah, wonderful, well done. Innovation Hub.
Yes.
Tell me more.
It's fitting that Nissan are here.
Where have we got? Who have you got from Nissan? Aye.
Go on, introduce yourself, because we've only just met.
Okay. How long have you been on Nissan, Rob? Right, okay. Good stuff.
So yeah, the Innovation Hub started with your old boss, Steve Marsh. So we were having a coffee one morning, and we were talking about how amazing would it be to get the cars to drive themselves from the factory to the ship, and the ship drive itself off down the port. And there was nothing in that coffee, by the way. It was just coffee. But then the more we thought about it, if you take it bit by bit, the more we realised it's actually quite doable. So we pulled a team together to start looking at that, and I know that you're making real advances on the site with this kind of automation. But then we realised that there's probably a load of stuff that we could do working collaboratively, and this was something that we really champion at the port. Some of these things that we want to achieve, like with Nissan, or with other ports, or in safety, or within the region, it's too big for us to crack on our own.
Yeah.
But collaboratively, we've got such a pool of amazing talent in the region, so we thought if we get our heads together, we can make quite a lot happen. And that started the Innovation Hub. So that was opened in 2019. We have one of only a handful of, we're actually quite lucky in the region because we have a couple of doctors of innovation and entrepreneurship in the region. But Dr. Jo North, who is somebody I've worked with before, one of those doctors, very, very bright, forgot more than I know about this stuff. She runs the hub for us now, and we get involved in AI projects. We run hackathons and Dragon's Den events. Not allowed to call them Dragon's Den. I've realised that this is live. For copyright purposes, we call them Innovation Live. We actually wanted to call them Serpent's Lair, but they wouldn't even allow us to do that either. So Dragon's Den style events, and when there's a great idea, we'll go and help fund it. Hackathons, we get people like Accenture coming to try and solve a problem, but we also get kids of 17, bedroom developers, who have won a hackathon. The bedroom developers beat the corporates. And we get people together and give them a problem, don't give them all the constraints that we've had from years of working in an industry, and it is amazing what they come up with. Fascinating. So we do all that kind of stuff for ourselves. We do it collaboratively to make ourselves safer with other ports. We invited PD ports to be part of that group as well, because we wanted to demonstrate to the industry that competitors can work together on the right things, whether that's safety or green issues, etc. And they're a real willing partner in all that. So Innovation Hub, we knew we were launching something, but that's developed into something that's far more than we expected, really. It's an amazing place to be part of.
Lindsay, haven't we had Joe? Yeah. We've had,
of course, you've had Joe here.
Have you? Yeah,
she's incredible.
I thought you might have watched that one.
She told me you grilled her, actually. That's how I know that you've had Joe here. Yeah, she really enjoyed it. She's a fascinating person.
Yeah.
But actually, all Joe does is enable the collaboration to happen. And with some of the other people that we have on the port and in the region, it's amazing the stuff that they come out with.
So we're doing some fantastic, I'm taking credit for you here.
Yeah, no, we.
So we're doing some fantastic stuff. If you had to think about world maritime, who's really pushing boundaries out there? And
yeah, it's hard to say because all ports are different. So if you talk about things like automation, it's easier for a port that only deals in containers to be highly automated because the boxes are pretty much the same kind of size. The setup is going to be the same right the way through the port. And if you look at containers, Felixstowe's great, Singapore, Shanghai, all of these amazing containerized areas are fantastic. But we're quite a unique place. So we have bulks, we have offshore, we have estates, we have containers, we have cruise and ferries. So to automate all that in one go is pretty much impossible. But actually, the first bit of this is getting ourselves a data strategy to understand what we really need to know in order to move forward. And that's not to say that we're going to automate everything either. Automation for me is just about efficiency. But actually, the thing that makes us really smart is the way that we connect to the rest of the world. That's when a port becomes a smart port. Automation is just something that can make you more efficient. But that said, it's hard to automate some of the things that we do.
Yeah. You mentioned the things that you do there. So what does your day-to-day look like? Because there seems to be lots of...
There is no day that's the same. It's changed through COVID, actually. So I used to do the Monday to Friday thing. I actually live... I don't know whether I'm allowed to say I live in Nottingham.
Right, but, okay.
Nottingham Forest supporter, but Newcastle, my close second. South Shield's probably mine.
Really? Not Sunderland?
Yeah. No, I actually go and watch Sunderland as well. I like football. Oh, I've got myself into trouble.
Yeah, you really have.
I really got myself into trouble.
You were doing so well. So.
Is this live? Can we cut this? Yeah. I'm a fan of football, so I'll go to see anything.
Don't go and watch Sunderland then.
but you can't say that now. Can't say that because the VP of Nissan is a massive Sunderland fan, so I really can't say that. Sorry, Alan.
So your day-to-day, I was asking.
Yeah, you totally threw me then. I'm realising all these tweets I'm going to get now. It changes from day to day. Yeah. So a lot of it is about working with government on how we can change policy to allow stuff to happen easier for the UK, not just our port, but ports in general. A lot of it is about working with other ports to see how we can do things better. A lot of it is about sharing what we do and what some of our amazing colleagues do. And then a lot of it is on the port, working with Ian and the rest of the team there to see how we can attract these bigger businesses to the Tyne. Working in the region, we talked about devolution recently. What can that mean for us? What can it mean for the region? So every day is really, really different. But when I'm in the port, I like to walk around. I like to see what's happening. And every week, it's easy to say this, but it is true. Every week, I drive through that port and I walk down the quayside and think it's changed because the transition is so fast now. Every day is different. But when I'm up here, it's nice to be on the quayside and it's nice to meet stakeholders and so on.
Rob, Gemba walks, is that what that is? There you go. See?
What's that?
Yeah. So we'll have to...
All right. Right, yeah. We just call it the quayside.
You just say having a walk around, but it's a thing, isn't it? It's a thing. We use your eyes and have a look, yeah.
Well, this is the thing about that port is, again, I'll get some grief for saying this, probably from some of my team. I'm an overhead in that port. Where the rubber hits the road, car term there for you. Where the rubber hits the road is when we have pilots and our crews go out to ships. Pilots get on ships, sail them into the Tyne. We take stuff off, we put stuff on. We've got people in cranes, got people working in container yards. That's where we're adding value. And so, trying to understand what we do on a day-to-day, and it changes day to day as well. Walking around there is fascinating. And there's some amazing, amazing characters around there as well. I've done it for years.
Do you do tours?
No, but we're going to.
Well, right. You heard it here first, right? Okay.
So we were going to do one last year, at the start of last year, and then COVID started to hit again.
Yeah.
And the last thing that we can do, because we're critical to the region, 1 in every 8 light bulbs powered by stuff over the Port of Tyne. Nissan can't export cars without the Port of Tyne. 40% of the tea comes through the Port of Tyne. Without providing those services, the region would pretty much grind to a halt. So we were really, really protective of our colleagues through COVID because we had to be. Not because we just wanted to keep everybody safe, but if we close the port, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So we were going to do it last year, and we didn't. We're planning on doing an open day this year to trial how it might work, but we'll probably do that for staff and families. And then, we want to invite the community in. We do it in smaller scales. We've had kids come and go on a pilot boat, and they've gone out to the mouth of the Tyne, and they've seen seals and holding feet hanging out the window here and arms here. And
big risk assessment for that.
Yeah. It wasn't meant to be risky, but then, we didn't plan for the unplanned. But the kids were amazing. Yeah, the kids were amazing.
We've talked quite a lot about skills on these talks.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts around that? Bringing our younger generation through with the right skills that the port needs.
So I think it's a complicated one for me, really. This is because we all talk about skills, but I think there's a skills for today, and I think there's a skills for tomorrow. And if you think about how things have changed, well, let's pick up the skills for today first. We do work with the local colleges, and we were a partner with 4 universities in the region to bring today's skills to the port. Though we have an amazing mix of people who have been there for many, many years with incredible experience, and some young, new people to the industry, probably their first big role, and everybody makes a massive impact when we all work together. But the skills for tomorrow are going to be quite difficult, because if you think about technology, in fact, you'd have seen it if you've been watching those TED Talks. The iPhone.
Well, I just skimmed it.
Yeah, and then you have a go at me for not listening to some of these. So I remember that.
You couldn't even remember what year it was, but you have done 3, I get it.
Yeah. So the iPhone, 15 or so years ago, wasn't a thing. But now everything's run by apps. We do our business on the phone. We book our holidays on the phone. So it's changed the way in which we engage with the world. That was 15 years ago, but computing power doubles every 12 to 18 months. 10 years' time, that's 1 million times more powerful than it is today. So we need to think about just getting kids excited about the industry, not necessarily being specific about the skills, because they'll be working in things that aren't even a thing today. So we need to get them to see the port and get excited by the river and the opportunities, not necessarily the specific skills, because that will change.
Yeah, I love that. Good stuff. I'm sure we'll have questions on that. You mentioned devolution.
Yeah. And
you mentioned some of the things in your day-to-days with maybe influencing government, maybe feeding things back, that kind of stuff. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that and what that means to the port?
Yeah, well, devolution is going to be interesting, but actually for us it feels exciting because there's a geography here that we can't get around. There's a free port in Teesside. There'll be a free port on the east coast of Scotland. And they're going to be 2 big, chunky bits of land that are trying to attract these same businesses that we do.
Do you want to talk to us about a free port?
Yeah, sorry. So a free port is it's a policy around a regional port that has that there are some benefits for businesses to go and set themselves up in. But actually, devolution provides the same kind of easements, and the investment zones that you'll have seen that we've been announced that we're going to be an investment zone as a region, that will do the same kind of thing. But we need to think different, and we need to think smarter as a region, because if we have a free port to the south of us, potentially a free port to the north of us, we can't have a number of smaller ports in the middle trying to compete against each other and do their own thing and try and kill each other in the process. And the reality is, each one of those ports, Blythe has got some amazing stuff going on there. Sunderland, the city, and the football club, by the way, and the port has got some amazing stuff going on, and we're championing loads of stuff in the region. So we shouldn't be trying to kill each other. We should be trying to work with each other and actually attract this business to the region for the benefit of everybody. So I see devolution as a key to unlocking that. Now, there's nothing set in devolution yet, but we'll be working really hard, and we're an absolute advocate of us working together as a collection of assets and as a region to ensure that we can attract people to the region, so to bring generational jobs, to bring social prosperity, to allow a place with high unemployment, if we're honest, you know, get ourselves off that curve. And the only way that we're going to do that is collaborate and be smarter about how we work.
Yeah. Good stuff. I think we should open it to the floor. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good stuff. Who'd like to be first to ask Matt a question? Daniel.
Yeah.
Hi.
Daniel, first of all, it does seem to me as if it's a little bit like the Berlin Wall, you know, because I mean, you're behind, and we're over here, and there's so many good things happening that the people in the borough don't have the pride for the port that they probably should have, because they can't sense it. So the fact that you're looking to open it up is great for our pride, but I suppose also for your brand as well, you know, because I think it all helps, because the two have got to be connected, the people and the port together, you know, working. So I think that's really good news to do that. It would be great if you could give us some indication around jobs that you think, potential of jobs maybe that we could bring in over 10 years, because in this region that's the head turner. You know, that's the one that really matters. But the other thing is, you know, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, you know, in the budget, 2 investment zones were announced. One is going down to Tees Valley, and we know one is coming up here. So I bet you'd give your eye teeth that it came to South Tyneside, which seems like a good place. So my question there really would be, is what sort of game changer would it be if we got that investment zone, which must sit right across where you are, I guess?
Yeah, okay. That's great. I think there's 3 things to cover in there. Actually, all really, really great questions. So firstly, I absolutely agree with you about that wall. Doesn't feel like the Berlin Wall to us, actually, because we go across it and it feels amazing inside as well. But yeah, we need to find a better way of connecting with people around us. And it's not just on the south side, it's on the north side as well. I guess the complication is we're a border as well, so we have to be pretty secure. But there's got to be a better way. And open days might be a part of something bigger. And actually doing stuff like this, you know, is a step to getting the region to understand what we do. So absolutely agree with you on that. And I'm still, it was actually our chair who talked about these little glass panels. So I was taking the credit for that. I'm hoping she's not going to listen to this. But yeah, Lucy, our chair, came up with that idea. And, you know, it's such an obvious but an amazing idea to get kids excited about it. In terms of jobs, we're a trust port, which is unique, really. So there's 3 different kinds of ports. There's private ports, so we're owned by someone or a group or an investor, and they're usually driven by dividend and profit. Then there's a municipal that's usually owned by council, so Sunderland Port is a municipal. And then there's a trust port that we don't have any shareholders. We're a commercial organisation, but everything that we make, we call it profit, but it's not really profit. Everything that we make goes back into investing in the port. So we're quite a unique port in the fact that we don't have to do the same kind of things that most other private ports have to do. We don't have to always look at dividend. Well, we don't have to look at it at all. There's no dividends, but we don't have to look at profit all the time. Equinor is a perfect example of that. There was an opportunity of getting steel on that land that would have been a lot more profitable to us as a port, but what Equinor bring to the region is huge. So, I'll be forever thankful that Equinor picked our region for that. So when we look at business, we look at a number of things, how green it is, how the longevity of it all, what it means in terms of investment for us. But actually, the key thing is what are jobs it attracts. And that doesn't mean jobs in the port, working for the Port of Tyne. That will mean collective. So Equinor started with an announcement for 200 jobs. That's now at 400 jobs. The supply chain is usually 1 to 5, so who knows where that might end up. That's the kind of thing that we look for. It's not just about how much money it will make. It's about the jobs it creates. And the last question was about IZ and, investment zones and devolution. Yeah, of course, we want the South Side in investment zones. And, it's probably no surprise that we have been working very, very hard to try and get the whole of the port estate as an investment zone. And it makes sense to, because if 95% of all stuff comes in and out of the country by sea, why wouldn't we be? And then there's other places like IAMP. There's also other bits down the river that I think make perfect sense to be an investment zone. So we'll be working really, really hard with the combined authority to make sure that that happens. Did that answer the questions?
Yes, you did, Andy. You know what announcements would be made?
No, I don't. I think there's still a bit of work to do before that's all announced. But so I'm sorry, I don't know. I genuinely don't know when the announcement's made. But we'll be working hard for that.
Nicely done. I had to write those 3 down.
Yeah, I was concentrating at the same time, trying to log it all.
Sneaky that, Daniel. Yeah. Sneaky. Yeah. Would anyone else like to ask one question?
Yeah. Well, 3 are fine.
I have one question. So firstly, Matt, I'd just like to commend you. I've actually been into a look around the port.
Thank you.
You talked about leadership, and you obviously head up quite a large organisation. But as a leader of the Port of Tyne, what would you say has been your biggest challenge in the last 4 years?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, from a leadership perspective or generally? I don't see them as challenges, actually. I think when I came to the port in 2019, I saw a collection of people who really wanted to work. They wanted to make sure that their jobs were secure. They want to look after their families and so on. And but with that, there is a goodwill for that port that I've never seen anywhere else. And I've looked after. It's the smallest business I've looked after, actually. Has the biggest impact, but it's the smallest business. But the goodwill associated with the port is fantastic. So I guess the challenge for me is matching what is an amazing set of assets that we have, people, the land, all of the things around us, the region, with how we need to set a future vision. So and change is hard for people. When you don't know what's around the corner, it makes everybody nervous, doesn't it? So trying to get people to understand that moving into new areas of business like offshore wind and so on, there's probably going to be a couple of people listening to this that told me that we would never get offshore wind. Now that there's real jobs being created, matching that vision to the aspirations of the people and our amazing colleagues on the port was probably the biggest challenge. It probably still is. But actually, I don't see it as a challenge. It's quite an exciting place to be.
And overall, okay, you've talked about the leadership and the people, but from the business itself?
COVID. Everybody's going to say COVID, aren't they? But the reason COVID is not the balance sheet. It's making sure that our people were safe in a business that we couldn't stop. If we stop, the lights turn off. You don't get tea. That's probably should have been number 1, actually. You don't get tea. Then the lights. I probably should have put Nissan as number 2, actually. I'm getting myself into trouble again here. Keeping people safe on that port is a priority for us, and it's a challenge because we do lots of big stuff. I think keeping people safe through COVID and actually keeping that momentum going forward is a challenge that I'll always have, and it's always my number 1.
Thanks. James, do you have a...
Yeah, I think it's one question. Thanks for it, because sort of been answered by taking in the back of I suppose in the back. I'm James Brown, I represent the vocational centre, which is in Jarrow, a skills trainer for like 14, 16-year-olds.
Oh, fantastic.
But we work with the region's niche students as well, and we try and support some of the most marginalised young people in this area. A lot of our people, myself included, will travel past the port to get to the vocational centre, and you'll see them walls. But we conducted, I say we, but me, conducted an alumni questionnaire for a lot of school leavers, and it was about where do you see yourself in your local area. And unfortunately a lot of our young people don't feel like the port would want them, and they can't see themselves being there, which is quite upsetting to hear as a careers professional that works with people. And it just, with you saying that there's more that we can do, I would like to know what that is, and if you're open to suggestions from someone that works with those marginalised people, because I'd love to get some collaboration. And the other thing was just with working with other careers professionals in schools, we do find that we are struggling to get in the doors of places like bigger companies, and I'd like to see if you guys have a strategy for that in the next coming years.
Can I ask a question? No, it makes perfect sense. And actually, I'm the same as you. I find it kind of heartbreaking that people don't feel that it's accessible, because everybody who works at the port, the majority of people work at that port are local. Why do they say that it's not accessible? Sorry, am I allowed to do...
That's great, that's great. I'd love to know.
I think what I've experienced working with our young people is a lot of it is aspirational, so that a lot of people that I work with need to see a vision for their future. It's almost like leading them to their own future, isn't it? And not getting access to it is a big thing, and just I think it's probably just not seeing themselves in your organisation.
Well, in order to answer your question, it's a very easy yes. We'd love to engage with you. And we engage with the schools and colleges in the region as well. But if you find that, and it's something that we really need to get to the bottom of. And I'm sure, I don't want to keep labelling it the wall, because I feel like I've built it up to be something it's not. It's there for a reason, and it's not that we can take it down. But making it more accessible and for people to understand more about what goes on is really important. But, you know, it's like a lot of things. We think we know the answer, but we're not the people who feel like this. So actually, working with some of your kids would be hugely advantageous to us. And we have the same with diversity as well. We actually do really well in diversity, but on the quayside, it's something that we really need to get under the skin of, because it's not so good at the quayside. It's getting a lot better, actually, but it's still not where it needs to be. So, yeah, absolutely, come and talk to us about that.
We see, a lot of the young people that I've worked with have ended up being pushed away by the education system, we want for a better way of explaining. So they're already that step behind a lot of people when they're leaving. And I think this is, I've lost my own train of thought there, but it's one of the barriers they face when they leave. So I think the Port of Tyne is quite on a pedestal to them. I think if we can have you guys involved to try and break those barriers down, it would make a massive impact. And
we would love to get involved in it. And actually, our apprentices and so on, our apprentice scheme, we help those people go through their educational process. And but if there's something more that we can do, I want to be doing it. It's just that unless we talk to these kids and understand where the pinch points are, we'll always drink our own bathwater and think we're doing the right things. But this is the stuff that really matters to us, actually. So I'll give you my card before I go. And we definitely need to be involved in that. That wall is an amazing wall. I feel like I have to say that now. But it has its disadvantages. And getting people excited by the industry and being open to people is definitely one of them.
Great stuff. Nice one, James. Yeah, we've got time for maybe one or two more, so yeah.
Trying to get the right contact. We're a small company. We are literally 5 minutes walking distance from the Port of Tyne, and it took us so long trying to get contact with somebody within the Port of Tyne. We're a training company, and everybody needs some sort of training, and most companies don't realise they need the training until something goes wrong. So we want to try and get in there before that happens. But we found it very, very hard, and then when we did get through, it was a very long process. Would you be able to look at something to make that a little bit easier for SMEs? Because there's certain, you know, not everybody can afford to have ISOs, and especially 4 and 5 of them. You know, so that's where we kind of struggled.
We definitely need to talk as well. In terms of streamlining the process, we have a process to go through to make sure that our suppliers are the right suppliers. So apologies if that's slow, but we've actually just redone that as well. So if it's still slow, apologies. But in terms of finding the right contact, that should be an easy job. So again, let's pick that up, because I actually don't think you can get that off the website either. So it's definitely something that we can look at. The socials are always really good to pick up on. So LinkedIn, Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, if there's any way that we can improve on that, we're an open book with that. Yeah. That is exactly what they say, yeah.
Good, thanks for that. Have we got one more for Matt maybe before we go? Yeah.
Do you feel like you've got an Asian workforce? A lot of people are getting to an age where they're going to retire, and you haven't got people.
So questions about the recruitment side. The youth coming through into the port, because my feeling, if I looked at something and I would say a dock worker, I'm just going to say, like, you would look at something really old-fashioned being a dock worker.
Yeah.
And I think it's because your dad's worked there, your son worked there, your kids worked there, and I think a lot of generations of people have probably worked in the port.
Yeah.
And I find it from other areas, like some Nissan and everything, I think Nissan's an Asian workforce, and a lot of the supplier base is as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't have the youth coming in behind them.
It's you're right. When I started in 2019, especially, we had a demographic issue where we have a lot of people over 40, over 50. But that said, they're amazing people. They're amazing, amazing people. And actually, when you see the jobs that they do, these are amazingly skilled jobs. You trying to climb a ladder from a small boat to a massive ship in 6-meter waves and so on, it takes a certain skill to do that. So it's not something you train overnight. But that said, we realised that we had an issue that it probably won't happen whilst I'm here. It will probably happen for the next 2 or 3 people who have the privilege of lead in that place. But we need to tackle it now. The average age is coming down, but I think there's some real pinch points in there. So our marine team and some of our quayside working team, it's definitely an area that we need to concentrate on. And actually, that's where the apprentices go. That said, I think sometimes it's the way that we label those jobs as well that turns younger people off. So calling them dockers, for instance, that does sound old-fashioned. But we had a new crane delivered last week, and it's electric hybrid crane. This thing is high-tech. It's amazing. If you call somebody a docker, they wouldn't see this. But if you said that they were driving a high-tech crane, it's exactly the same job. But there's your vision of what that is very, very different. So I think we have a job in terms of selling what that really means to somebody. And also, we are getting a lot more digital. So, and even in the marine team, we've just we're investing £1 million on a new marine system. That is a space-age toy for younger people. It's incredible. So our vessel traffic service stuff, this is going to be the state-of-the-art way of managing traffic on the Tyne and out to sea. We're going to get that. We're probably one of the only ports in the UK to have that kind of system. but it's the way that you sell it as well. So we have a job to do in it, in how to make it appealing for young people.
Great stuff. So if you were in the audience, you're going to be one of the first ones to go on the tour and see all these high-tech spaces.
I've been totally set up there. Totally set up.
Thanks so much for doing this. It could be easy to not do it, and you've been really transparent, and you've heard from, some questions there and answered them very honestly and openly, and I really do appreciate that. Is there anything you want to leave us with before you go?
No, I think I'm a little disappointed that you didn't watch the whole TED thing, but if we put that to one side, I think the thing about the port is that we've got some incredible people working at that place, and we're all wanting to do the right job. We're in a transition at the moment. We've got some people like Ian and the team who are helping us try and pave the way into new industries, and we need new ideas. And all the time we're trying to modernise. So taking these bits of advice that you were talking about, and some of the questions, these are the things that we need to be majoring on, and we don't have all the answers. So reach out to us and help us learn, because it's easy for people to drink their own bathwater and pretend that we know, but we don't. So, yeah, thank you for reaching out and asking some of these questions and so on. And that's about it.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching at home as well. If you're at home, you missed a treat. Okay, it's really good to see you come back out as well. We talked about COVID quite a few times. It's brilliant to see people coming back. I think we have got out of that habit of coming back. So thanks so much. And we'll be doing this maybe another couple of months, maybe, Lindsay? Yeah. Wonderful. So thank you so much, and thanks to Matt.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Cheers, Ian.